I didn't expect fireworks or a flash mob. I'm not one of those people who believes their birthday should be a national holiday. But I did expect something with a card, a text, even just a kiss and a quiet happy birthday in the morning. What I got was nothing. I woke up before him, as usual. The morning light filtered through our bedroom blinds in soft strips, casting lines across the duvet. I turned over, facing him, thinking maybe he'd feel my gaze and wake up with that sheepish little smile he usually wore. But he didn't stir. I lay there a while longer, heart stubbornly hopeful, counting the seconds before disappointment set in. Eventually, I slid out of bed, barefoot on the cold floor, and walked into the kitchen. The coffee machine was empty. No note. No flowers. No post-it with a dumb doodle. I made coffee for us both, like I always did, and sat at the table, staring out the window, trying not to let it sting. He walked in 20 minutes later, groggy and yawning, scratching his neck. "Morning," he said, voice hoarse. I smiled, waiting. He kissed my cheek absently, grabbed the mug I'd made for him, and sat down to scroll his phone. Not even a flicker of awareness crossed his face. I waited another minute. Then 5. Then 10. Nothing. That was when the small lump of hope in my chest melted into something heavier. I didn't say anything right away. I didn't want to ruin the day by starting an argument. Maybe he was planning something later, I told myself. Maybe he was pretending to forget. Maybe there was a surprise waiting when I got home. That thought kept me going, stupid as it sounds. I kissed him goodbye, smiled like everything was fine, and left for work with a flutter in my chest that was half nerves, half dread. The day dragged. I kept checking my phone. No messages. No missed calls. No lunch delivery to my office. Not even a meme. I didn't want to be that girl, the one who texts "Did you forget?" So I waited. By 5 p.m., it was obvious. He'd truly forgotten. My coworkers sang to me with a cake someone else had bought. I blew out the candles and forced a smile, all while wondering if the man I lived with, the man I loved, even remembered what day it was. I walked into our apartment at 6:30. No decorations. No dinner. He was on the couch, Xbox controller in hand, headset on. He looked up and said, "Hey babe," then turned back to his game. I just stared at him for a few seconds. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "You, have anything planned tonight?" He paused the game, finally registering something in my tone. "Why, you want to go out?" I blinked. "It's my birthday." He froze. The look on his face said it all, pure and filtered panic. His mouth opened, closed, then opened again. "Shit, babe. I'm so sorry. I didn't know what to say." I'd waited all day to hear him say it, and now that it came clumsy, rushed, accidental, it didn't help at all. "You forgot," I said quietly. "You really forgot." He put the controller down. "No, I mean yes, but not on purpose. Work's been crazy and I had it in my calendar, I swear. I just lost track." I sat down on the armchair across from him. "You didn't text. Didn't call. Nothing. I know. Let me make it up to you. We'll go out this weekend, yeah. Anywhere you want." It was hollow. I nodded numbly, mostly just to end the conversation. The worst part. 2 days later, he was up early, humming to himself in the kitchen. I walked in, still feeling the weight of my disappointment. He was packing a gift bag beautifully wrapped in gold paper and topped with a bow. "What's that?" I asked. He grinned. "It's for Chloe. Her birthday's tomorrow. I'm driving over to surprise her." I felt something inside me unravel. He hadn't bought me a card. Not a candle. Not even a grocery store cupcake. But here he was, assembling a birthday surprise for his sister like it was the most important day of the year. I tried not to sound bitter. "You're driving 3 hours, of course. It's her 25th. I'm taking her to that spa she loves, and I got her that designer bag she's been eyeing." I couldn't help myself. "But you forgot my birthday." He paused, his back to me. "That's different," he mumbled. How is it different? He turned. It just is. Okay. Chloe's been through a lot this year. And it's not like I don't care about your birthday. I just forgot this once. Once. But it didn't feel like once. It felt like proof of how he prioritized people. Of how he made room for others, but expected me to make room for him. He left that afternoon. I sat alone in our apartment, the one we shared, surrounded by silence and a growing awareness that I was less to him than he was to me. I could keep going. I could talk about the days that followed, the way he tried to patch things up, the belated dinner he planned that felt like a pity party. I could describe how I went to Chloe's social media and saw the photos of her holding the bag I would have killed for, beaming, hugging him, while he smiled like the world's best brother. But none of that mattered as much as the moment I realized I was loving someone who treated my milestones like they were inconveniences. Someone who gave his best to others and expected me to accept leftovers. That was the beginning of the end. After that day, I started noticing all the little ways I was being sidelined. It wasn't just the birthday. It was the way he canceled plans with me to hang out with his sister or her friends. The way he spent hours texting Chloe about her drama but barely asked how my day was. The way he always made sure she felt seen and heard, while I was left feeling invisible. One night, I finally couldn't hold it in anymore. We were sitting on the couch, the TV flickering, but my mind was elsewhere. "Can we talk?" I said quietly. He paused the remote, looked at me with tired eyes. "I feel like I don't matter as much as your sister," I blurted out, voice trembling. "You forgot my birthday, and then you went out of your way to celebrate hers like it was the only thing that mattered." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's not like that, babe. Chloe's been struggling. I'm just trying to support her." "I get that," I said. "But what about me? I'm your girlfriend. Shouldn't I come first sometimes?" He shrugged. "It's complicated." "Complicated how?" I asked, my throat tight. He hesitated, then said, "Chloe's been through a lot. She's like family to me, probably closer than you realize. You're important too, but she needs me." I felt tears sting my eyes. "Why does she need you more than I do?" He didn't answer. That silence spoke volumes. From that moment on, I knew things wouldn't be the same. I wanted to be the woman who mattered most to him, not the one who was constantly competing for his attention. I started pulling away. Not dramatically, not with fights or ultimatums. Just quiet distance, choosing to spend weekends with my own friends, saying no to invitations that felt like second best, focusing on my own passions and goals. It was painful, but necessary. Eventually, he noticed. One evening, he asked, "Why are you so distant?" "I'm tired of feeling like an option," I said. He looked hurt, but didn't say much. Maybe he didn't know what to say. Maybe he didn't want to hear it. Weeks later, I found myself at a crossroads. Do I stay and hope things change? Or do I walk away and put myself first for once? One chose myself. Walking away wasn't easy, but it was the best gift I could give myself. And on my next birthday, I celebrated it alone and for the first time, truly felt celebrated. After I left, the silence in the apartment was deafening. I took my time packing up the things that reminded me of us: photos, gifts, little notes, each one a stitch unraveling from the fabric of what I thought was love. Every piece I boxed felt like shedding a layer of pain, but also a step closer to freedom. The first few weeks were the hardest. I'd wake up in the mornings feeling that hollow ache where his presence used to be. The nights were colder, the apartment quieter. But slowly, the ache softened. I filled my days with things I'd neglected for too long: reading, painting, reconnecting with friends I'd pushed aside. I started seeing a therapist, someone who helped me untangle the knot of self-doubt and sadness. Through those sessions, I realized I had been shrinking myself, dimming my light, hoping to fit into a role that wasn't mine, the invisible girlfriend waiting for crumbs of attention. Bit by bit, I reclaimed my identity. I went on trips alone, tried new hobbies, and celebrated milestones with people who truly cared. When my next birthday rolled around, I didn't expect a grand party or expensive gifts. But I gave myself something better, the gift of self-love and peace. I invited a few close friends over for a small dinner. We laughed, shared stories, and toasted to new beginnings. I looked around the table and felt a warmth that no boyfriend's forgotten birthday could ever replace. Months later, I heard from him a message apologizing, saying he missed me, regretted how he treated me. But I didn't reply. I realized that some doors, once closed, are better left shut. My heart was no longer a revolving door for people who didn't prioritize me. I learned that valuing myself wasn't selfish. It was necessary. And though the scars from that chapter remain, they remind me of my strength, the strength it took to say no to being invisible, and yes to being seen. Now, every year on my birthday, I celebrate not just another year of life but another year of choosing myself. Because sometimes, the best love story you can write is the one you live with yourself. As time passed, I began to notice how differently I viewed relationships. I wasn't desperate for validation anymore. I didn't settle for less than I deserved. Instead, I sought genuine connection with people who made me feel seen and valued, not invisible or secondary. I also learned to forgive not for their sake, but for mine. Forgiving him wasn't about excusing what he did, it was about releasing the bitterness that weighed me down. Forgiveness allowed me to breathe again and open space for healing. One afternoon, a friend invited me to a small gathering. Among the group was someone new, kind, attentive, and truly interested in who I was beyond the surface. We talked for hours that night, sharing stories and laughter. It felt effortless. It felt right. But I was cautious. I didn't want to rush into anything or lose myself again. I took my time, learning to trust and love slowly on my own terms. That's when I realized something profound. The most important relationship I have is the one with myself. Everything else is a gift, not a necessity. Looking back, the pain of that forgotten birthday and feeling second to his sister was a painful but pivotal lesson. It taught me boundaries, self-worth, and the courage to walk away when love isn't reciprocal. Now, when I celebrate my birthday, I do so surrounded by people who truly care and, most importantly, by the person I've fought hard to become. With every passing day, I felt more like myself again, whole and unbroken. I started journaling regularly, pouring my thoughts and emotions onto paper, which helped me process everything that had happened. Writing became a refuge, a way to make sense of the chaos inside me. I also threw myself into my career, something I had neglected while caught up in the relationship. I signed up for workshops, took on new challenges at work, and rediscovered my passion for my field. Success at work felt like a bomb, rebuilding my confidence brick by brick. Socially, I grew closer to my friends. I stopped making excuses for him or trying to explain away his neglect. Instead, I shared my story openly, which brought unexpected support and understanding. I realized I wasn't alone, and that empowered me even more. Eventually, I reconnected with my family. We hadn't spoken much during my relationship, partly because I felt ashamed and partly because I was too caught up in trying to keep things together. Their arms were open, their love unconditional. I let their support fill the cracks in my heart. One day, out of the blue, he reached out again. This time, his message was different, less apologetic, more reflective. He admitted his mistakes, his failures to prioritize me, and the hurt he caused. I read the message carefully, then closed my phone without replying. I knew forgiveness was about freeing myself, not reopening old wounds. My life was moving forward, and I didn't want to pull backward into pain and neglect. I started to see my birthday not as a day to be validated by others, but as a celebration of survival and growth. Each year, I honored the strength it took to reclaim my happiness. Love, I learned, starts with yourself. And once you love yourself fiercely enough, you stop settling for anything less than you deserve. Months later, I found myself standing outside his apartment building. It wasn't planned. I hadn't intended to come here, but something in me needed closure, a final conversation to lay the past to rest. When he opened the door, surprise flickered across his face. "You came," he said softly. I nodded, steadying myself. I needed to talk. We sat down in the living room, the air thick with unspoken words. I looked at him, the man who once made me feel invisible, who forgot my birthday but remembered his sister's. "I've forgiven you," I began, "not because I'm okay with what happened, but because I'm choosing to let go of the pain. I'm choosing peace over resentment." He looked down, shamed. "I'm not here to rekindle anything," I said firmly. "I'm here to say thank you." He blinked, confused. "Thank you for showing me what I don't want in a relationship," I said with a small smile. "Thank you for teaching me to value myself more. Because of you, I learned to stand up, to walk away, and to find my own happiness." He reached out, but I pulled back gently. "This is goodbye. For real." Walking away from his door, I felt lighter than I had in years. It wasn't just the end of a relationship, it was the beginning of a new chapter where I was the author of my own story. I had finally stopped waiting for someone else to make me feel worthy. Because the most important love I have is the one I give myself every day. Walking away from his door that day, I felt an unexpected calm settle over me. It was as if a heavy weight I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying had finally lifted. For years, I'd carried the burden of feeling unseen and important, like I was competing for scraps of affection. Now, I was free. In the weeks that followed, I focused even more on myself, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. I started meditating, which helped me center my thoughts and find peace in the present moment instead of dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. I enrolled in a creative writing course, something I'd always wanted to do but had pushed aside. Putting my experiences into stories gave me a new sense of purpose. It was therapeutic and empowering to transform my pain into something meaningful. Friendships deepened. People who truly cared stood by me, and I learned to recognize the difference between genuine support and superficial kindness. I stopped settling for less in all my relationships, romantic, familial, or platonic. Romance, when it finally entered my life again, was slow and steady. I met someone who listened without judgment, who made me feel seen without me having to fight for it. It was a breath of fresh air, reminding me that healthy love exists and that I deserve it. Most importantly, I became my own best friend. I nurtured my own happiness and stopped relying on others to fill voids inside me. That self-love became my anchor. Now, when I look back at that forgotten birthday and the pain it caused, I don't feel bitterness. I feel gratitude. Gratitude for the strength I found within myself and for the journey that led me here to a life where I am enough, just as I am. Because sometimes, losing someone you thought you needed is the greatest gift you can give yourself. Months turned into a year, and I found myself in a place I never thought possible, truly content. Not because I had found someone new, although that eventually happened, but because I was finally whole on my own. I learned to celebrate my birthdays alone when necessary, without waiting for anyone's validation. I treat myself to small joys: a quiet morning with coffee and a book, a walk in the park, a dinner at my favorite restaurant. These moments became rituals of self-love. At work, I took on new challenges that pushed me outside my comfort zone, and I thrived. The confidence I had built carried me through meetings, presentations, and even difficult conversations with grace. Sometimes, people from my past would pop back into my life: old friends, acquaintances, even him. But I no longer felt the pull to prove anything or seek approval. I was secure in who I was and what I deserved. One night, I sat on my balcony, the city lights twinkling below. I thought about all I had been through: the pain, the heartbreak, the loneliness, and I smiled. Not because it was easy, but because I had grown stronger. I realized that my story wasn't about the pain of being ignored or forgotten. It was about resilience, self-discovery, and the power of choosing myself above all else. And that made all the difference. As time went on, I found joy in the little things: a sunrise that painted the sky in soft pinks, a spontaneous road trip with friends, the warmth of laughter filling a quiet room. These moments reminded me that life goes on, and sometimes, it gets even better than we expect. I started volunteering at a local community center, helping others who felt lost or overlooked. Sharing my story and listening to theirs gave me a sense of purpose beyond myself. It was healing in a way I hadn't anticipated. Love came back slowly. Not as a whirlwind, but as a gentle presence, as someone who respected my boundaries, celebrated my independence, and cherished me for exactly who I was. With him, I didn't have to compete or question my worth. I learned that love isn't about losing yourself, it's about finding someone who encourages you to be fully you. Reflecting on everything, I felt proud of the woman I had become. Strong, compassionate, and unapologetically herself. The birthday I once dreaded became a symbol of triumph. Each year, I celebrated not just another year lived, but a life reclaimed. Because in the end, the greatest love story is the one you write for yourself. Now, when I look in the mirror, I see a woman who has been through storms and come out stronger. A woman who no longer fears being forgotten or overshadowed. I've learned to celebrate my worth every single day, not just on birthdays or special occasions. I've discovered that happiness isn't found in someone else's attention, but in the quiet confidence of knowing who you are and what you deserve. And that truth has set me free.